It is much easier today to talk about karma because the word karma has now been incorporated in the English language. So being Sanskrit, it is also now an English word. In fact, people go around now and talk about karma beyond just human karma. They talk about cars breaking down and cars having bad karma when they break down. When they get big bills, then they say, well, that's instant karma. And so it is very much a part of the English language. So if you look at the modern dictionaries, you will find the word karma. We might probably claim that it is the Theosophical Society that introduced this word into the English language. I did check this in some of these modern dictionaries, and I found that together with karma was also another word, boondocks. And I found out the word, by the way, the word boondocks is a Philippine word. And the word boondocks simply means, it's pronounced bundok, but here it's pronounced boondocks. It simply means forest or mountains or a place outside of the city. When this was during World War II when the US forces came and liberated the Philippines from the Japanese. They would ask where the Japanese were, or Japanese soldiers, and the people would say they are in the boondocks. So when they came back to the United States and they got their jobs and houses were built in the suburbs, and the suburbs were forest-like, and they were asked, where do you live? So they said, in the boondocks. And so now it's part of the English language, together with karma. And of course, in the ending of World War II, we also ended some or a lot of karma in the world also. What we will do tonight is look at karma largely from an individual standpoint so that it can be very practical and incorporate some of the ideas in the life that we live at home, in the office, and we might say even in our social contacts with people. First, we will look at the cosmic order very briefly of the universe. The universe is sometimes referred to as a cosmos, and the word cosmos simply means order. The opposite of the word cosmos is chaos, and chaos simply means disorder. And scientists, especially in science, see this, that there is great order in the universe. From the minutest speck of dust or subatomic particle to the greatest of galaxies, there is a tremendous order that moves the universe. Every now and then there might be chaos, but even this chaos occurs in an orderly fashion, and they call these cycles. And so some of the questions that can arise is that how can it be that in the universe that we live, there are certain things that somehow do not appear to be in an orderly fashion? So, for example, if we look at human life especially, we see some people who are born very, very wealthy. Some of them are born also very healthy. Some are born with great physical beauty. And we also see some who are not only deprived of physical beauty, but some are even born with deformities, with sicknesses, and some are born very destitute, very economically disadvantaged, and we say, why all these differences in life? And people tend to think that maybe this universe, maybe it's a universe of chance, that there is no order in this universe. Everything simply occurs according to chance. There are other inequities and differences which we see in this apparently orderly universe. For example, if you look at people, there are some people who may not be very wealthy, or you might say very healthy. They tend to be somehow, some of them tend to be happy. Why all these differences in, we might say, emotional happiness? Why are some people born in a family or in a place where they are lavished with love, while others are born in a family or in a place where there is a lot of conflict, a lot of hatred going around? And why all these differences? When we come to the mental level, we also find all these differences among human beings. There are people born with great intellect and great talent, while some are born with hardly any intellect at all, with hardly any intelligence. Some live a life of terribly mental darkness, and we say, why all these differences in life? If we say we live in an orderly universe, how come this apparent disorder occurs in the universe? Now, there is one implication when we say that this universe is orderly. It means that the universe in which we live in is intelligible, and it also means that this is an intelligent universe. If this was not an intelligent and intelligible universe, there would be no order in the universe. The universe would not be a cosmos, because to bring order implies intelligence, and it implies also intelligibility. By intelligibility, we mean that this intelligence can be understood by our own intelligence, no matter how meager it is. And this is what we will do tonight. As a result of these differences and inequities we have mentioned at the physical, emotional, and mental level, there are a number of theories, we might say, that have arisen to explain all these inequities. So one of these theories, what we might call the theory of determinism. According to this theory, all these differences we have in life, physical, emotional, and mental among human beings, has already been determined in the universe. Sometimes this theory of determinism is also known as the theory of fate or the theory of kismet. In other words, everything is already fixed. So the life we have on earth has already been fixed. We cannot add or subtract anything. So this is one theory that attempts to explain these discrepancies in life. So if a person is born wealthy or poor, one is born intelligent or not, happy or not, according to the theory of determinism, even before we were born, this has already been determined, and it has been fixed, and there is nothing we can do about it. But this is one theory that attempts to explain it. So we will go through some of these theories and see how it compares with karma. Another theory is the theory called the theory of contingency, or sometimes called indeterminism, that the life we live on earth is not determined. Sometimes it is also known as the theory of the freedom of the will, that our will is free. We can do what we like, and we can change things around. So nothing is fixed. So it is directly opposed to the theory of determinism. So according to this theory, we can do and change things. We can do what we like, and we can change things around. Nothing is fixed. Then we have another theory. We will call it a theory until we say we can verify this for ourselves. The other theory is the theory of karma. Now we will introduce another one. It is some way associated with these theories that attempt to explain the differences and inequities in life. And this is the doctrine of eternal hell and heaven. So according to this theory, if there are discrepancies that occur in human lives, so some people are born in negative circumstances, according to this theory, if somehow they try to live a good life, when they die, somehow this will be compensated in heaven. Now there are some who take advantage of the life they live on earth and somehow take advantage of other people and all that. But somehow, according to this theory, if they do not try to resolve this when they die, they might find themselves in eternal hell. So this is one theory that attempts to explain the differences we have in life. So we know that in some of the religions that we belong, when we complain about life and say, well, life is so hard and difficult, then usually we are advised that don't worry, when you go to heaven, all of this will be worked out. And when we try to compare our life to others and say, how come these other people are not suffering, they're enjoying life? Don't worry. When they die, they'll go to hell and they're going to suffer and then compensate for the good that they enjoyed on earth. Now, we do not intend to criticize this theory. What we are doing is simply presenting theories that are around that attempt to explain the inequities that we see in life. And the other one is the theory, we will say, of karma. So according to the theory of karma, we determine the life that we live on earth. But karma is not a theory that exists by itself. It is only one of the theories that go with reincarnation or the idea of rebirth. Now, we will not touch on reincarnation and rebirth. We will reserve this. This is a whole study by itself in our next meeting. So for now, we will just tentatively assume that we come back to earth and again until somehow our karma is resolved. Karma is known by, maybe we can go first to the root word of karma. Karma comes from the Sanskrit word, the root word kri, K-R-I, and it simply means action. So because of this, there are many other names of karma. Sometimes it is called the law of action and reaction. So for every action that we do, there is an equal and opposite reaction, not only in the physical level, like in science, but at the emotional and mental level. Sometimes it is also known as the law of cause and effect. So for every effect, there is a cause. Sometimes it is also called the law of causation. Sometimes it is referred to also as the law of retribution and reward. So whatever we do on earth, if they are negative, then retribution comes, and then we suffer the negative effects of the negative causes that we generate. If we have positive things that occur in life or positive circumstances, so according to this theory, then we get rewarded for our positive actions. So sometimes it is called the law of retribution and reward. Now there is another view that we are neither rewarded nor punished by retribution. That this law of karma is like the law of gravity, and nobody punishes or rewards us. So if we jump out of a 10-story building and we break a leg or maybe lose our life, the law of gravity did not punish us by retribution. It simply is that we have violated the law of gravity. Now there is another view that another way karma is called, that sometimes it is known as the law of justice, that there is an eternal justice, sometimes referred to as a divine justice, that rules the universe. So all the inequities that we see in life are ruled by this divine justice. That is why sometimes the law of karma is also called the law of equilibrium, that there is an equilibrium and balance in the universe, that when we break or disturb this balance and equilibrium at the physical, emotional, and mental level, then we create these imbalances. And negative things that tend to occur in the universe is simply an attempt of the universe or the cosmos, the order in the universe, to restore the original equilibrium. We will be going into this in detail and maybe cite some examples. Sometimes the law of karma is also called the law of harmony. There is harmony that is behind all manifestation in the universe. And when you and I disturb this harmony, then when there are negative circumstances that occur, it is merely trying to restore back the original harmony that we have broken. Another conception that we might associate with karma, and sometimes this is the way it is called, that it is sometimes referred to as the law of synchronicity. According to this view, there are certain things that occur in the universe that cannot be exactly traced back to a direct cause and effect. And they refer to this as synchronicity. In other words, there are certain things that occur in the universe because happenings are simply synchronized. So a good example would be like, for example, now it would be like 10 to 8 in New York. I guess we are 1 hour ahead. So, or they are 1 hour ahead. So there it would be, let's say, 10 to 9. So we're 10 to 8 and they're 10 to 9. But it doesn't mean that their 9 o'clock, let's say, caused us to be 8 o'clock, and our 8 o'clock caused them to be 9 o'clock. It simply is that this is the way the movement of the earth and the sun is synchronized. So there are certain things that occur in the universe that cannot be traced directly to cause and effect, but are accounted for by synchronicity. Now we come to karma itself. We will find as we go along that karma, in fact, reconciles all these different theories. The theory of determinism, the theory of indeterminism, and the theory even of heaven and hell is all reconciled, in fact, by the theory of karma. Now, karma is divided or can be divided into several classes. And we will use a diagram here so we can visualize this. assuming now that we live several lives on earth, and that in each life that we live on earth we generate karma, if we were to add all the karma we generate in all the lives we have lived on earth, all of these would constitute our total karma. So we'll make a circle here to symbolize our total karma. TK, that's not technical knockout, because sometimes karma technically knocks us out. This is TK for total karma. Now, not all of this total karma, it is said, descends into one life that we live, because if all our total karma were to descend on one life, it is said at our stage of spiritual evolution, it would not be possible for us to sort of cope with all this total karma. We might say, we will just exaggerate a little. Let us say that of our total karma, let us say 80% is bad karma. So let's say this is 80%, and we will say this is bad karma. Now, by the way, we are just using the word bad in close quotation. Strictly speaking, all karma is good, because although they appear to be bad, they teach us the lessons of life, and we learn from this bad karma, then ultimately it becomes good. So when we say bad karma, we are using this in close quotation. Maybe another way of putting it is that we say when it is karma that we do not like, then we just call it bad karma. When it's karma that we like, then we say it is good karma. So karma is like medicine. It can be very bad tasting, but sometimes it can cure us or help us get well. So likewise with karma. So let us say we'll exaggerate a little, because at our stage of spiritual evolution, it is said that we tend to have more bad karma on the whole than good karma. So we have now 20% here. And we will say this is good karma. So if all this total karma of ours were to descend into one life, then we have 80% bad and 20% good. And our 20% good would be able to offset 20% of this 80% bad. And we'll have 60% bad karma, and we have no good karma to work out that 60%. In accounting, they would call this, being in the red. So the business goes out and probably declares bankruptcy. So we become spiritually bankrupt, and it's not possible to take care of this bad karma. So there is a beneficence that somehow rules the universe. And it's part of the intelligence and order of the universe, part of the cosmic order. So only a part of this total karma is allocated for one life. In our theosophical literature, this karma allocated for one life has been called ripe karma. So it is said that we generate karma, and these are the fruits of our action, and these fruits ripen. So like a tree that has several fruits, not all the fruits ripen all at one time. Of course, there are trees or plants where fruits all ripen at the same time. But let's say this tree, not fruits all ripen at the same time, only a few ripen for a certain day or a certain part of the week, let us say, or month. And so there is this total karma. Part of this becomes ripen, and this we can harvest or we reap. I'm tempted to call this ripe karma installment karma. Probably it's much closer to our conception. So this total karma is like the total debt we have incurred with the universe. But it is not possible for us to pay all this total debt. So what happens is that we can pay this only by installment. And the installment that we pay corresponds to the individual life, to one life that we live on earth. So only part of this bad karma and part of this good karma is allocated now for one life. So let us say now, part of this karma here that is good, let's say 10%, will be allocated for one life. And that is installment karma for one life, or we will say ripe karma that is ripe for one life. And let's say now 5% of this bad karma. And this is allocated for one life. So we will call this now ripe karma or installment karma. So not all of our karma descends in one life. So one class of karma is this total karma, and another class of karma is this ripe or installment karma allocated for one life. And that is the beneficence of the universe. So we have 10 parts of good karma working for us and 5 parts that is bad karma that hinders us. So we have 5% of the good to take care of this 5% bad, and we have 5% extra good karma to make more good karma. And as we go along, a time will come when we will be able to cope with this 80% bad karma. Now this ripe karma or installment karma allocated for one life are divided into 3 subclasses. So the first subclass is said to be fixed. So one is fixed. In other words, this karma cannot be changed. It's fixed. For example, some of us are born male, some are born female. So this is fixed. You cannot change this. Now, some might think that there are exceptions, like some can undergo some kind of operation, but that is more an exception rather than the rule. So there are transvites, and somehow now with modern surgery they can fix things up according to the choice of the person. But on the whole, it's fixed, whether we're male or female. Now some of this installment karma for one life is semi-fixed. Example of semi-fixed karma is, let's say a person is born very economically disadvantaged, born in a poor family and all that. And let's say this person tries very hard. Let's say he's just probably just average intelligence, not even very talented. But whatever intelligence he has, he studies very hard, and he practices a lot of virtue. He works very hard. Maybe he works on even 2 shifts. I know some people who do this, and they have extra jobs, or what they say, they moonlight, and then maybe they even go to school, and he studies, and he saves his money, and with great effort somehow, he saves some money and then invests in a business, and he works very hard, and after several years and maybe later in life, he becomes successful and quite comfortable. Now this is what we call semi-fixed karma. This semi-fixed karma can be overcome only with great effort. And this is the karma that appears to be fixed, but with great effort we can change this and turn it around, so it becomes now semi-fixed. And of course, the other is karma that is not fixed. And that is karma where we can change it without any great effort. So for example, if you come here tonight, like you came tonight and you say, where will I park the car? I say, well, here's, and then you decide to park your car, short of a karma where an accident probably would occur. But other than that, we do what we like to do, and there is not much great effort in doing or changing things. So this is what is called not fixed karma. And the other type of karma is what is said to be future karma. This is karma that we will generate in the future. So we have 3 types of karma. We have the total karma, or 3 classes of karma, all the karma that we accumulated in all the lives we live on earth. And then we have this ripe or installment karma, karma allocated to be exhausted in one life, and then this divided into 3. And then we have what we call is future karma. Now this karma is sometimes divided into 2 parts. Sometimes karma, there is a part of karma that is used as the forces that build the bodies that we have as we incarnate into physical life. We will be going into these details in our next meeting, but for now we can mention it because it is related to karma. So sometimes karma is looked up as being divided into 2 parts. So the first part is that karma that builds not only our physical body from fertilization to gestation and up to birth, but it is said we do not only have a physical body, we also have an emotional body, and there is this karma that builds this emotional body before the birth of the physical body, and then there is this karma that builds the mental body even before the emotional body is formed. So according to this, before we incarnate on earth, the mental body is first built, and karma, part of this allocated karma, goes into the building of this mental body, and then a part of this goes to build the emotional body, or sometimes called the astral body, and then the physical body. Then the second part of the karma is the karma that the person will experience in the life that he therefore lives on earth after he is born. So that is another way of looking at karma. Now karma, as it builds the mental, the emotional, and physical body, corresponding to this, we see that it operates at 3 levels. So in the building of the bodies, we see that it operates at the mental, at the emotional, and the physical level. Now we will use an illustration here to see how karma works at the physical, emotional, and mental level. This is almost a classic example because it is easy to visualize this and comprehend this. I'm sure some of us have been in certain places in the city where someone is bound to tag your coat and maybe ask you for, before it used to be 5 or 10 cents a dime for a cup of coffee. Now it's 2 quarters, couple of quarters for a cup of coffee. And you find this when you go into a depressed part of the city. And so there are a number of ways that one can respond. So one can give the 2 quarters or couple of quarters and walk away and emotionally feel that this person is somehow bothering him, and mentally he'd even say, well, I don't know why this person does this. He seems to be stronger than me. He should go find work rather than go begging around for a couple of quarters. So we have given physically, but we have not given emotionally in terms of sympathy, and we have not given mentally in terms of understanding. Now, karma works at the physical level. Whatever we give in comfort to another person physically comes back to us in terms of comfort. So we see some people in life who are very, very comfortable physically, but emotionally they are not happy. Mentally also, they are also neither happy. So it can be either in this life or in a previous life, they have been very charitable and they have given physically, but they have not given emotionally and they have not given mentally. So physically, they are comfortable. So anything that we give physically that brings comfort to another person comes back to us in terms of comfort. Now, this person who asked for a couple of quarters, it is possible that we may not give physically the couple of quarters, but we can give in terms of sympathy. So we might sympathize with him, but not give anything physically. And then mentally we will go on thinking that anyway this guy should go find work. He's stronger than me. I don't know why he should be asking a couple of quarters. So anything that we have given emotionally in terms of sympathy comes back to us in terms of emotional happiness. So we see some people who are not necessarily physically, wealthy from a physical standpoint or economic standpoint, but emotionally somehow they are happy. Why? Because they have given emotionally either in this life or in a previous life. Now, one may not give physically, emotionally, but one can give also mentally. So one can have goodwill. So one may not give physically, emotionally, but one can say to oneself, I wish that he finds a job and I wish he'd work out his problems instead of go begging, and then he walks away. So anything that we give mentally comes back to us in terms of mental understanding. Now, if we give physically and we give emotionally and we give mentally, then all of this comes back to one physically, emotionally, and mentally. So it comes back in terms of comfort physically, emotional happiness at the emotional level, and then understanding at the mental level. Now it might be asked, does karma not work above the physical, emotional, and mental, assuming that there are other planes of existence above the mental? We say karma does work, but not in the way we understand it at the physical and emotional level. It is said above the mental level, all of creation works in perfect harmony at these planes of nature. But the moment we go at the mental, emotional level, and human beings are introduced like us with their own free will, then we are free even to go against the order of the universe. And then we create this karma that we say that occurs at the physical, emotional, and mental level. Now, we might go to some examples to show how this karma operates. Of course, when we were using this example of charity, we do not say, well, I'm going to give this person a couple of quarters so that I can earn some good karma and be comfortable. So we also don't do that. We don't say, well, I'll give him some emotional sympathy so that I'll get happiness. I'll give him some mental goodwill and good wish so that I will get some mental understanding in return. Of course, we do not do this. What we're doing is we're merely explaining how it operates. We'll come to this a little later because ultimately karma is resolved by selflessness. So whatever we do physically and emotionally and mentally, we do not do this because we think of ourselves or we get something in return. Maybe at this point we might cite some examples of how karma works in some cases. These cases are taken from the Edgar Cayce files. It is more of the principles here that are interesting rather than the details that are involved in some of these cases. So here is a case of a young woman who was very, very pretty and very attractive, but especially her hands were very, very pretty. And so she was used as a model to promote hand lotions. So this is not to criticize or advertising that goes on, but usually people they get there to advertise hand lotions have already nice skin or nice hands. And then they're told, see, they use this and then because of the lotion. But actually, it's the other way around. Their hands were taken. The lotion was used because of the hands, not the hands because of the lotions. So in a past life, it was found out that this lady in a past life was a scrub woman in an inn. An inn in the olden times would be like a hotel. And she was a scrub woman. Her job was to clean the floors. Now, in those days, they didn't have vacuum cleaners and things like that. They had to do it manually. They had to go down on their knees and their hands, and they had a pail of water, and they had to really scrub the floors. And in those days, they didn't have asphalt and cemented roads. Things were pretty muddy. And so they had this cleaning woman who had to clean this in. And she did her cleaning job, and not only that, she did it with a very healthy attitude. She was happy to make the floors clean, and she was happy that people could walk on clean floors. And she almost did this the whole of her life, that she even destroyed her hands in the cleaning of these floors. So in this investigation, clairvoyant investigation, it was pointed out that this was the karma that she earned in the next life. Now, this is not to suggest that we should get down our knees and clean floors with our hands so that we'll have nice hands in our next life. This is merely to illustrate the principle of karma, that nothing is lost in the universe. Now, here is another karma that is from a group or family standpoint. This was a family, a father and a mother, and they had a daughter. And the daughter had epilepsy. And at the time this was investigated, now people are a little bit more broad-minded, but many years back, when people look at a family with epilepsy, they tend to look down on them socially. Like they'd say, well, you know, this family has a crazy son or crazy daughter or something like that, because they didn't understand what epilepsy was. And so a clairvoyant investigation was done, and they tried to look into this case, and in a previous life, they found out that it was the same setup. You had the father, the mother, and also the daughter. But this family was then living in a farm, and the past life that was investigated was in France. And they were living in the farm, and one day a member of the royalty, like a prince, went hunting and came by this farmhouse and was asking for direction. So this young girl came out and gave some directions, but this member of the royalty, a prince, got attracted to this young girl and invited her to some of the parties in the palace. And the parents were excited about it because they thought, imagine their daughter was being invited by somebody in high places and all that. And so they encouraged the daughter to go to these parties. And they were a poor family living in a farm, and they came to this. And the daughter began to enjoy some of the nice things in life. And not only that, she was very attractive. She started playing around in the palace, what you'd call sleeping around nowadays. And her parents encouraged this because she got a lot of gifts. And they became a little bit more affluent than their neighbors, and they got all this social recognition. So you'll see how this karma works out now. So in this life, in this next life where they were, the same setup occurred. And now, while in a previous life they had all this social approval that they earned and encouraged, this time they got the negative aspects of their social relationship. They encouraged the daughter to act in a, you might say, unethical way. And now, because they did this, they have to take care now of this same daughter in this life. So in a previous life, the daughter brought them social prestige, but in this life, the daughter now brought them the opposite. And so in karma, no one ever escapes this law of justice. We will go to maybe a larger scale now, like let us say national karma. We see some of these small countries in the world. Sometimes they are called developing countries. And I came from one of them, and if you go around, travel in the world and talk to their leaders, they will tell you if they have problems, they'll tell you and blame the more advanced countries of the world. They'll say, well, these big countries, that's why we are poor, because these big countries exploit us and take advantage of us. What they do is just get our national resources and then make them into products, and then they come back and sell it to us at a higher price than the resources that they got, and then so we have all these imbalances of trade, and here we have our economic difficulties. So all these leaders of these small countries blame these leaders of the advanced and big countries. This is just my personal view of stating this. You need not believe in this. My suspicion is that most of these leaders were leaders of the developed countries in the past, like in Rome. When Rome ruled the world, or when Greece ruled the world, or some civilization that ruled the world, they were the leaders. And they took advantage of all the small countries around them. Now, leadership is not lost. The quality of leadership has been developed, and so they retain this. But this time, they're on the other side of the fence. And so now they are in small countries, and then the leaders of big countries take advantage of them. In fact, some of those who take advantage of them are some of their own followers who were the leaders under them, who are now on the other side of the fence doing it to them. So they exploited their own leaders who were then under their power, but this time they find themselves in the other side of the fence, and they now are taking advantage of their former leaders. And so nothing can be escaped in the life that we live on earth, at the individual level, at the family level, and even at the national level. Let us go now to another kind of karma. I'm tempted to call this instant karma because then it occurs in the life that we live on earth. And this illustrates the idea of synchronicity in the operation of karma. Let us say a man lives a life on earth where he's quite very, very intolerant. In other words, they believe only in this person believes only in certain things, and all other beliefs are false, and only their belief is true. And so they have this very rigid kind of thinking, very, very intolerant, very, very prejudiced. So what happens when one lives a life of intolerance and crystallized kind of thinking? Now, the moment we do this, then it just might be that the physical body starts synchronizing with the rigidity of the mental body, or the mental forces that we generate. So much so that the physical body now becomes rigid according to the rigidity of the thinking. And then finally, even the hands cannot move, and some of the joints cannot move. And what do you call this? Of course, this is called arthritis. Now, this is not to make judgments on people. It's difficult to talk about this because we tend to make it can appear as like some kind of ethical judgment or moral judgment on people. I recall one time in Santa Barbara, this was a talk on karma, and we met in a place where there were two meeting places. One was a small room, the other one was a bigger room that could accommodate about 100 people. So we were a small group where we were about 40, so we were in the small room. And I mentioned this theory of the rigidity of one's thinking, how in synchronicity the physical body now becomes rigid and then arthritis occurs. I found out afterwards that in the bigger room, the arthritis association was meeting afterwards. And there were some people who went into the wrong place. They went to this small meeting room. They strayed there. And because I talk about this synchronicity and arthritis, they thought that they were in the right meeting place because this was on arthritis, And I found this out afterwards because they came to me and said, this talk you gave, this is this is the lecture that should be given in that arthritis association to which we belong. And that's how I found out that there was the arthritis association. And they told me, we have been meeting year after year after year, and always they are expecting some kind of miracle drug, that's going to take care of this. Because we mentioned that anything that occurs in the physical body can be traced back finally to consciousness. There is a hierarchy of consciousness in our system. Maybe we can touch on this lightly. So here is our physical body. Our bodies are made out of systems. So you have the endocrine system, the nervous system, the digestive system, all this. So it's broken down into systems, and then systems are broken down into organs. And you look at these organs, they're broken down into tissues. And you see these tissues, they're made up of cells. And cells are broken down into molecules. Then molecules, according to science, are broken down into atoms. And the atoms is made up of subnuclear particles, or just particles. So you have now particle physics. All of these are hierarchies of consciousness until finally, why do we end at the physical body? May it not be that we also have an emotional body? Then we have a mental. And all of this is a unity. So anything that occurs here probably is a result of this higher consciousness, because as you go in this hierarchy, the consciousness goes higher and higher. So according to our mental consciousness, we'll determine our emotional consciousness, our body consciousness, and then the consciousness of the systems and all that. In fact, lately I came across an article where they were studying microbes, the E. coli bacteria. It's a very simple bacteria. It's found in the large intestine. In fact, I enjoyed this article because the writer said, where in the large intestines you find the E. coli and all their E. coli bacteria and all their kissing cousins in the large intestine. And they said that even this E. coli bacteria, it's E and then or E. coli bacteria, they has intelligence. So they have this liquid where this bacteria is, and if they put an attractant, and then the attractant starts, it's a liquid that attracts them, starts spreading out, then this E. coli bacteria starts going to this attractant. Now, if they put this attractant and then stir it, and it is like it's well blended with the original liquid, then the E. coli bacteria cannot determine where the attractant is, and they just sort of roll around, just tumble and roll around. And they have, they have like tentacles like that, they roll around. But the moment there's an attractant and what they call in the liquid, there is a gradient where they can sense this, then all these tentacles start aligning themselves, and not only that, they start turning around. The tentacles, they turn around like that. And they all synchronize and they go to this attractor. And they said, there must be intelligence even in this bacteria. So this is an intelligent universe. So there is a consciousness here, and maybe this consciousness responds according to this higher consciousness. So the moment one lives a life of mental rigidity, then finally even the physical body starts synchronizing with the rigidity of one's mental consciousness. Now if this is so, it would be nice, because then if this could be understood, maybe some hard-nosed experiment could be done and really verified. So if this is so if a person now with arthritis and all this, and the physical body is being rigid, so here is one experiment. We are used to brushing with our right hand, so we'll break the rigidity or break the tradition. Brush with the left hand. There are some people who are so rigid, you cannot even rearrange the furniture in their homes or the picture frames, exchange them. They're already rigid with their thinking. So move things around, change things around. We only like to read certain kinds of books. Read something else that we don't like. Bend the mind to obey the will. And who knows that the moment we make our minds and emotions flexible, so there are certain people we do not like or we have enemies. Let's forgive them. Let's be good to those who don't like us. So we break the old pattern. And the moment we become that flexible, who knows that finally even the physical body becomes flexible again. Now here is another one. This is probably in big business. And it can occur also in small business. Supposing one lives a life like a businessman, who is out there always to exploit someone, either another business or another person or another product or whatever situation there is. They're always trying to exploit and take advantage. So big corporations eating smaller corporations. People who are more intelligent, you cannot call this probably intelligent, who take advantage of those who are even less intelligent. They always want to eat up somebody else's profit, somebody else's position, somebody else's money. I call this Pac-Man consciousness. They always want to eat up somebody else. So the moment we have this Pac-Man-like kind of consciousness, then finally the cells of the physical body start synchronizing with this Pac-Man-like consciousness. So finally the cells of the physical body start eating each other up. And when they start eating each other up, then you know what this is. Now, of course, we do not want to make any ethical judgment whatsoever here. But I have read cases and reports in some articles where there are terminal patients in cancer. And it is said, like death, they go through a number of stages. So the first is they revolt and fight and all that. Then second, this is the inquiry stage where they look into their problems and their troubles, and then they try to study it. And then in the third stage, they begin to sort of resolve this, and then in the fourth stage, they begin to accept it, their terminal cancer. So in this hospital, what they did was to get these patients who have undergone these 4 stages. So when there are new patients that come in, because they have gone through these 4 stages, then these new patients, terminal patients in cancer, would go through these 4 stages. Since these previous patients, the ones who have come ahead, have gone through these 4 stages, they're the ones who could understand the ones who would go through these 4 stages, the new patients. So they would help them and all that. And it turned out that these patients who went through the 4 stages and they were told they'd live only for 3 months or 1 year, when they started helping the new patients who had cancer, they would live 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and some of them even got cured. Why? Well, because the consciousness is changed. They are not out to eat up somebody else. They are out to help these new patients who are just like them, to help them out, to take care of them. And some of them even do get healed. I will cite another example how karma works. I'm sure you have seen take this very, very tentatively, because they can appear like some form of moral or ethical judgment. In the March of Dimes, you find cases of children who are born with tremendous limitations. They are retarded, they're physically deformed and all that. I have a strong suspicion that this is the karma of the astute businessman, the one who manipulates the forces of politics, economics, and social forces for personal gain, either for fame or power or for fortune, and they manipulate. And so what happens is that in the next life, this karma comes back, and now they cannot manipulate even their own physical body because of some deformity. They cannot even manipulate their own minds. They are mentally retarded. Now we say karma is bad. No, because in a way it is a blessing. Because in a previous life, the intelligence was misused. And this next life, the intelligence has been withdrawn so that the person cannot commit more bad karma. And it removes it. So the person is physically deformed and cannot move physically to even manipulate people also. And so this has been removed. And so the power to generate more bad karma is not there. And so it is a blessing to this person. So I have a feeling that this is the karma of this businessman. Now, these businessmen are not totally bad. You see, we may be working in their factories, their businesses. So although they manipulate the forces of economics, politics, and social forces, they also do some social, they bring about some social benefits, like they may probably create jobs, and we work in some of the businesses of these people. So for the social good that they have done, society now returns it back to them. So society now raises funds, to hire doctors and nurses and all that to take care of them because of the social good that they did to the society that they serve. But also, for that which they took advantage of from the society whom they were serving, they also had to pay for this. That is why it is said, karma is an exact taskmaster. Nothing ever escapes it. Now, we might go into some of the laws of karma now and see how this applies in daily life. At the emotional level, or rather at the physical level, let's begin here. We might say there is what is called the law of action. And the law of action in karma may be simply stated in this manner. Whatever action that we do at the physical level creates circumstances and environment. So if at the physical level we hurt people, then it creates physical pains for us either in this life or the next life. At the emotional level, we have what we call the law of desire. The law of desire, simply stated, is this way. Whatever we desire, we get. Desire attracts the object of desire. Kindly notice, whatever we desire, we get. If we don't get it in this life, we get it in the next life. And that is the problem in life. It is not that we do not get what we want. The problem in life is we do get what we want, and when we get it, then we don't like it. It's something else that we wanted, and that's the problem in life. Now, I'm sure you know the story of this children's story about a king who wanted gold so much, and he said if only anything he touched would turn into gold, he would be the happiest man on earth. Of course, you know the rest of the story. And so then his food got turned into gold, and he couldn't eat his food. And that's the problem. There are certain things that we desire in life, and then when we get it, we find out what we do not like. That is why on the spiritual path it is said, if you must desire, desire only the unattainable. And the unattainable is the invisible, the divine. And that is the unattainable. Desire only the divine, unattainable. At the mental level, the law of karma states that whatever we think, we become. So, if we think ill of others, then we become the ill that we think of others. Now, of course, when we think goodwill, we have good wishes of others, that is what we become too. Now we come to the key to karmalessness. Now, it doesn't mean now at the mental level, therefore we will think well of others so that we can be well mentally, or that emotionally again so that we may be emotionally happy. The key to karmalessness finally is in selflessness. It is said whatever we do at the physical, emotional, and mental level, if this is done in selflessness, then there is no entity on which karma can work itself. So, for example, let us say that there is a post, let's say this is the post, and let's say I'm tied to this post. Now, the thought of self may correspond to this post to which I'm tied, and the length of this string would be my karma. So if I have bad karma, and it is that short, I am not free. I am free only within the length of this rope or string to which I am tied. Beyond that, I am not free. So karma limits me. Now, if I have good karma, I might have a longer rope, so I can move around some more. I am more free. But beyond this, the length of this, my karma, limits me, my action. Now, this is the thought of self. So whatever my karma, if it is short, bad karma, or long, good karma that I have, if you remove the thought of self, then there is nothing on which this rope can bind itself, because this is the thought of self. So as long as there is a thought of self, then one is bound by karma, either good or bad. By the way, it is not as simple as that, if we might extend this analogy, because that which creates this rope is this, is this post here. It comes from this. So as long as there is a thought of self, then there is this that generates karma, either bad or good. So in any action that we do, where there is no thought of self, we forget ourselves, but think only of the other person, then we move into what is called karmalessness. Now some people will say, well, how can you act without any thought of self? Now the conception behind this is this. There is no question that there is a self in us, because in some of the spiritual literature that you'll come across here, you'll come across statements that say, the self that you think is yourself is an illusion. Really, there is no the self. There is only a universal self. Now we are going to the individual self. Now there is no question that we have a self. But the illusion is that we think that this self is separate from every other self. So if we hurt somebody else, we say, anyway, this self is not connected with that self. So only that person is hurt, I am not hurt. But the truth is that no self is separate from every other self. So if I hurt somebody, since this self is not separate from that other self whom I hurt, that hurt of that person will also hurt me because we are connected. So the conception is that if there is a self, and this self is not separate from every other self, then therefore the real self is the universal self, which is every self connected or one with every other self. So the conception and idea that there is a self separate from every other self is sometimes called the greatest illusion that a human being can have. And so when we have a conception of a self that is not separate from every other self, therefore the happiness that we give to another person, whatever makes another person happy, we too become happy in that. Whatever hurts we do to another person, that ultimately will either hurt us, either in this life or the next life. The study of karma, it is said, has no end. We have not touched on other karmas except in a few examples. So there is group karma, there is national karma, there is world karma. We might say even this cosmos, the solar system which we live in, also carries its own karma, but limited at the physical, emotional, and mental level. The understanding of karma brings about spiritual freedom and spiritual liberation. In fact, probably it is the only valid ethical law in the universe, because out of the understanding of karma comes about this ethical consciousness. And therefore we cannot hurt anybody without hurting ourselves. The good we do to others also is done to us, and no one ever escapes this law. The ultimate in this law is that finally we begin to learn the lessons of the order that is and the intelligence that permeates the universe in which we live in. So we began by saying that it is a universe of order and intelligence. In the understanding of the laws of karma, we begin to live a life that is intelligent according to the intelligence of the laws of karma of the universe. We close with a good wish. May each and every one of us, in the understanding of this, awaken the ethical consciousness that is the only intelligent way of life that is in synchrony and in harmony with the laws of the universe that spells for order, happiness, and we might say even peace.
Would you like to ask some questions?
I would like to
Yes,
know
please.
the child that you described as your example of a businessman in the past life as they suffered during those early years and have cut off any more bad karma, or at the same time creating good karma by the suffering within.
Yeah, all right. So if I understand the question, here's this child who is this the who did something in a past life and then suffers in his life?
You said that it was a business.
Yes.
Your theory was
Yes.
that it was a business person.
Yes.
That this is a child with suffering from severe illness and
Yes.
can't even take care of themselves.
Yeah.
Could that?
Yeah, this idea, I didn't get this out of any particular book. These are just my own way of understanding and the application of some of these principles. I used to be in business before, in management consulting and all that. And so I've worked at the factory level, and small and big corporations. And I have seen this happen, and I have asked questions, how could this be? And my feeling, the only way to resolve this is applying some of these principles of karma. In fact, there is one person that I used to work with. This person is a billionaire now. He's a billionaire now. He has a degree from the Wharton School of Economics. I don't say the people who have degrees there are like that. It just happens he has a degree from there. And I used to do a lot of his project studies. And every time he gets the project study, the first thing he would ask, how's the cash flow? Let's see the cash flow. He said, Bing, if you control the cash, then you control the corporation because it's the lifeblood of the corporation. Well, for other things, I separated from him and went elsewhere. I didn't like the way he was doing business, But from the practical standpoint, it was all right, Now, this man now is a billionaire. In fact, at that time, he said, Hong Kong, the lease of Hong Kong is expiring. This is a 100-year lease. And so at that time, Singapore wanted to become the replacement of Hong Kong, as a central business place. And this was in Manila. He said, well, I'm going to let Manila become the financial center of Asia to replace Hong Kong. He didn't succeed in this because somehow Singapore is developing. So he opened an office in Singapore. If you can fight them, join them. That's what he said. But anyway, he's very successful now, except for one thing. He has hemophilia. In other words, his blood won't coagulate. It might be that there might be some kind of analogical karma, this cash flow, because blood and consciousness are very closely associated. If you lose blood, you lose consciousness. Like that. And not only that, his hobby is hunting, which is again spilling blood. Now, would you like to be a billionaire and have hemophilia, or just be an average person and no hemophilia? And so I begin to see this, and I feel that even in business, maybe someday it would be possible to address businessmen, and maybe let them think about this. Our problems of economics are not economical problems; they are problems of ethics. Yeah. Yes.
The question I was asking, though, does the person that suffers,
Yes.
let's say, severely in the next life, are they capable of creating then good karma just by the mere fact that they are suffering?
Oh, I see. Well, what is happening is that they are prevented from doing more bad karma.
But no further.
No further. Well, some good karma can arise out of this because there will be the determination to overcome difficulties, like this. And then they are being taken care of by people, and they're maybe showered with a lot of love, and love tends to awaken love. And so you will tend to love someone who takes care of you. So it begins to awaken again. And it's at the higher levels of consciousness, you might say the higher consciousness, or in religion they call it the soul, is beginning to learn its lessons, although the physical brain may not remember it. Then in the next life, this becomes as conscience. So when the same opportunity to take advantage of others occur, then conscience comes and says, watch out, don't do it. You suffered before and you paid for it. Don't make the same mistake. And it said that is how conscience arises in our consciousness. Yeah. Thank you for your question. Yeah.
I have a question. Do you have a hypothesis regarding high blood pressure? It seems like we have a country that is so predominantly involved in the problems of high blood pressure. As you had a hypothesis about the mental rigidity regarding arthritis, do you have one regarding high blood pressure?
It probably might correspond to desire. The desire. In fact, our blood pressure is in direct proportion to our desires, you might say. The stronger the desire, the more the blood activates itself. And so one has so many desires in life. Not that we shouldn't have desire. We may have desires, but our ideals should rule our desires. And the moment our desires are not ruled by our ideals, in other words, our desires must be subordinated by our ideals. The moment our ideals do not control or guide our desires, then we will have problems. And you know this, when you have a desire, the pressure starts building up. So people have so many desires in life, and the only way they can get it is by doing certain things, and so they have to do this, and they say, well, I don't like to do this, but I have car payments to make, a house and all this, my boat, my vacation home and all that, and so all these pressures. And so maybe it can be traced to desire. That is why it is said, he who conquers or she who conquers desire conquers happiness or unhappiness. Because all our desires directly, or rather, We'll put it the other way around. All our happiness or unhappiness can be traced back to a desire. Yes.
I don't understand the two concepts of karma you discussed. I don't understand how you get a negative debt if all the bad things you do to
Yeah.
other people are simultaneously done to yourself, and the good things you do for others are paid to yourself. How do you ever get a debt?
Oh, I see. So the question is, how do you get a debt when you do good or ill to others? The word we are using here, debt, is simply to illustrate violations of the law. The law of the universe is the law of goodness, the law of, you can enumerate all the virtues of happiness, of harmony, of peace, and of beauty. This is the law that is intelligent, which is the intelligence behind the universe. So the moment we live a life where we violate all these laws that are intelligent, that are virtuous, then we go against the laws of nature and we suffer therefrom. So the example we use, for example, gravity holds the planets together and all of us holds us here on the ground. Now if we jump on a 10-story building, then we break a leg because we violated the law. So there is a law of harmony. So when we are not in harmony with our fellow men, the negative effects come back to us. And so there is no suffering that we inflict on another person that will not bounce back to us. That is why sometimes it is called the law of cause and effect. So if you throw a ball, the ball will bounce back in equal proportion to the strength by which we throw the ball against the wall. So likewise, sometimes maybe an example in agriculture can give much clearer. If we sow ill, then we harvest ill. If we sow good seeds, we harvest good fruits. If we sow bad seeds, then we harvest bad fruits. So likewise in life. When we sow and pass around kindnesses, then we will find a world of kindness around us. If we pass around sorrow and suffering and hurts around us, then that is what we get around us. In some way, we are very fortunate here. We sit now here quite comfortable. In some places, like maybe in Beirut, people are insecure and all the dangers that they go through. How come they are there and we are here? How come it's not we who are there and they are here? So whatever happens in our life, we are earned for this. Now, we do not say, good for them. They must have done something bad in the past life, therefore that's good for them. We also do not say that. We are merely describing, like if a person breaks a leg because he jumps out of a window, we don't say, well, good for him. He broke the law of gravity. So we don't say that. We are merely describing what happens when the laws of the universe are violated. Hopefully out of this might arise, I'm sure you see it. Therefore, in the life that we live, there is an intelligence that rules the universe, and this intelligence is virtuous. Therefore, only the virtuous life is the intelligent life. Yes, please.
Well, what I can't get through is that everything we do with thought.
Yes, that's right.
So that when you do something
Right.
good, I would say most of the time maybe it doesn't flow from really your good nature, but you're thinking of all you've said this evening, and
Yeah.
you do it because you think, well, I should do this, or this is the right thing to do.
Yes.
So you're still doing it with some thought of
Yeah,
me.
that's right. That's right. Yes, of course. Yeah.
Or do you,
Well,
how do you ever get to the point where you do it
just keep-
automatically and you don't think about, well, this is...
just keep doing it. Just keep doing it. And a time will come when you don't have to think anymore. It becomes automatic because it becomes part of our nature. It is already part of our higher nature. What we're doing is to make our lower nature express our higher nature. So this divine spiritual nature is our higher nature. It's already in us. But this lower nature, the physical, the emotional, mental, tries to live a life of its own. And these are three natures. Sometimes the body wants something, the emotions want something else, and the mind wants something else. So we're divided. But there is a spiritual nature, which is the virtuous, spiritual, the divine nature. What we're trying to do is to let this spiritual, divine, virtuous nature express itself at the mental and emotional mental level. Now, since we're identified with the mental level especially, we tend to intellectualize things. So we find that if we're trying to be good, we feel sort of fake, You just keep doing it until a time comes, it becomes automatic. Then you don't think about it anymore. very much like a pianist or a violinist. At the beginning, they have to think of their fingers, and they just keep practicing. And time comes, they don't think. They just feel their music, and then their hands obey them, their fingers obey them. So likewise, at the beginning, it's an intellectual. There's some a thought associated with it. It's an intellectual effort. As you keep doing it, a time comes where the physical, emotional, mental nature is one now with the spiritual divine nature, when there is no thinking about it. In fact, we have experiences like this when you do some kind thing to a person where we didn't think of it, and then they say, "Oh, thank you for that." And I said, "I didn't think about it. It's just natural." It's like if you're sitting at the side of the road and you see a little child cross the road and about to be run over by, let's say, a car. We don't say, "Now, if I save this child according to good karma, I'll get good karma." We just, and if I don't, it'll be bad karma or something. So I must now react and save this child. And you jump. That's too late. So when we see that, what do we do when a child running across the street and there's a car coming? You don't think about it. That is our spontaneous, divine, spiritual nature, always out there to help. But the moment you have second thoughts, then this is when the mental, the emotional starts coming in. Yeah. So at the beginning, you will feel fake about it, but just keep doing it until finally it becomes part of our higher nature, then it is automatic. And when somebody thanks us about it, say, "Thank you," you say, "Well, I didn't think about it. There's nothing to thank for." Yeah.
Well, but then there's nothing wrong with thinking about it then as you do.
Yeah, that's natural. At the beginning, the mind comes in and thinks and figures it out. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. Yes, please.
Can you say anything about vegetarianism?
The question is about vegetarianism. Well, there are many kinds of vegetarians now. There are just the lacto-ovo, and then there's the vegans also who don't eat like even honey and all that. Vegetarianism is the abstention from eating, let's say, animals. We might even say dead animals. We have to be careful because some people are vegetarians and they get sensitive, to some of the things that are taken up in a discussion on vegetarianism. And when an animal is killed, there is no doubt that we inflict pain and suffering on the animals. I used to do management consulting work for the largest meat packing corporation in Asia. It was in Manila. The largest. They'd butcher 5,000 to 6,000 hogs an hour by electrocution. It goes on a conveyor belt by electrocution. In an hour, they can go 200 to 500 cows an hour. They kill it by a pneumatic gun here, with a cylinder about 1 inch in diameter that goes here like this. By the way, that was a client of our consulting company. And we had problems of cash flow for about 6 years. So the board decided that I'd take over the corporation as the executive vice president. Then when I saw that account, and you could not say our president and general manager did not know what he's doing now. Because later on, he was a professor in a university, and he has a degree from Harvard, doctorate in commercial science. Couldn't solve the cash flow problem. So when I look at our accounts, I saw it came from this corporation. So I just said to myself, bad karma, cash flow, flow of blood of this animal. But I'd never talk about this to the board. So what I did was to phase out this consulting, this client, this business. And in 3 months, I was able to phase it out. And I tried to build new accounts to take place of this old account. Because 60% of our income came from this meat packing corporation. And as soon as I phased that out, and by the way, I noticed when I gave a proposal to replace this, I got all the proposals, 100%. And in business, if you give a business proposal, if you give 10, you get 2 or 3. But this is 100%. Everything I got, I said, well, something must be working in my favor here. It's only when I look back that I begin to see what was happening. And of course, I'm a vegetarian. I said, "Oh, are you doing this because you're a vegetarian?" I just laugh at them and all that. They suspected it. But anything that we inflict the animals, which is cruelty, comes back to us in terms of cruelty. There are many things that happen also. See, an animal dies in a state of anxiety, fear, because I've seen this. See, here's this cow that is killed like that. Then this second cow sees it. Now, I even recommended to put a curtain so that the second cow won't see the first cow and therefore become nervous. I said, so, and then they said, why will you do that? I said, well, you have milk from contented cows. You can have meat from contented cows. Because this cow sees this cow being killed, and it's not a contented cow. So this is a discontented meat that we're going to eat. You know that a mother that is discontented, that feeds her child, breastfeeding, the milk will make her child get sick. So those who sell cow's milk, they say, these are from contented cows. All right. But we found out that the killing was much faster than the opening of the closing of the curtain, and it slowed down the production, so it had to be removed. Now, this second cow sees that. He could see the anxiety. Then the third cow is trying to look, and so the second cow looks back like that, and they look at each other's eyes. And they are single file, like this, single file. So the second cow looks at the third, and then in single file, it's a corral, they look, until finally it goes to this whole corral here, and then they start moving until this whole cows are swaying like this. Now, in the next corral are the cows that are being inspected before they will be placed here to be killed. So this one sways like that, and then this one will move a little like that. Then there's a third corral, which are the new deliveries, and it goes like that. So here's this big one, starting from this look. Like that. And I saw this. Now, when you eat the meat, then the meat is charged with the anxiety and all the nervousness of the animal. Now, where will that energy go? I just say this is a theory. I hope it can be investigated, by science. When you eat this, then all this anxiety, this nervousness starts going out. Of course, it gives us some nutrition. If not uric acid also, that causes, you know what it causes, arteriosclerosis, hardening of the veins and all that, high blood pressure. And so this nervousness goes out. Then people feel that they're irritable and all that. So they have to drink more coffee, to cut down the nervousness. So all of these things somehow cannot be escaped. Yeah. So there are some who feel that maybe if you become a vegetarian, you escape from this. There's another theory that all the hatred and anger that is inflicted by the human kingdom and the animal kingdom gathers together as some kind of global karma. And when the global karma is saturated, it discharges itself in world wars. And this is one speculation about this. We will just say a speculation about it. So you can imagine how many cows and chickens, millions of them die. They die in a state of anxiety, fear, nervous. This charges the mental atmosphere until finally it saturates and descends into human consciousness. Finally, there is a frenzy now, and they can understand each other, and finally it breaks into global wars. That is why there are some who say, beginning with our diet, we can become peaceful with the animal kingdom. If we are more intelligent than the animals, there is only one justification for intelligence, that it is used with love. When intelligence is not used with love, then we violate the intelligence of the universe. So if we are superior to the animals, or if we have more intelligence, then let us use this intelligence in an act of love to those who have less intelligence than we are, which is the animal kingdom. Yeah. Yes.
What about the idea that plants,
That,
I mean, I'm not against vegetarians.
yes, please.
But plants are also intelligent beings.
Yeah, that's true.
And
Because some say the plants are also conscious. But there are views that the plants do not have a nervous system like the nervous system of an animal or a human being. And the basis of pain is the biological nervous system. And so they do not truly suffer pain the way pain is suffered at the biological level, which is the animal level at the human level. So that's one way. So if, let's say, even with the plants, probably there's some evil. So we'll say that's only a lesser evil. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm glad you brought up that question.
what do you
Yeah.
do then if you're not a vegetarian?
Yeah, it is said the time will come, and it is said there are some people who have lived a very spiritual life that they thrive on air, and they're called the air eaters. Air, because you can go without, how long can we go without food? 40 days and 40 nights, let's say, without food, or 50 days or 60 days without food. But how long can we go without air? 4 minutes or 5 minutes. So if you count the proportion, 99.99% we live on air and 0.001% on food. Because with 4 minutes you can sow on air. So really we live on air. But we have not discovered the secret of air. All energy comes from somehow, and this is called prana, in Sanskrit it's called prana. There is energy in the air called prana, and we can live on that. But we do not have the spiritual insight to tap these forces of nature yet. And I'm glad we don't, because at the level of our ethical development, spiritual development, we might use these powers of air maybe to destroy rather than to give life. Yes. Maybe we'll take one more question. Yes. Yes, please.
Say something about parents and karma and helping children.
Yeah. About children? Well, this is family karma. The children that we have, there's a karmic links in the past, and in the karmic relationship, they get shifted around. So those who are our children now may have been our parents in a previous life. I know one person who does believe in these things came to me and said, I'd like to reincarnate in your family. He said, can you get all my things and then so that it'll be easy for me to remember, when I'm born in your family. I said, you better not get born in my family. I know you are so hard-headed, I might spank you. I don't believe in spanking, though. I was just joking, this person. But that never happened. That never happened. So there is a relationship with children, and we shift around. Those who have been our parents, brothers, sisters, husbands, mothers, and all that. And this might even explain some of the problems in psychology. Like, for example, Electra complex, the Oedipus complex. Where did this impetus come from? That probably in a previous life, father-daughter or son-mother were in some relationship like husband and wife, and it becomes a complex carried on in the next life. Yeah. And you see some children females who are behaving like males, you call them tomboys. So in a previous life, probably they have been female, male, and then there's a change of sex, then they start behaving like males. So also the other way around. So all these relationships begin to shift around until finally the lessons are learned of life. I have a suspicion that one of my daughter was my mother in a previous life. There's a suspicion. Because when she was little, when we would eat at the table, say, "Now you're spilling your food on the tablecloth. Don't do this. Don't do that." And she's a little girl. If we'd go out at night, and when it's cold, and you have a sweater, she'd get it and put it around my neck, just like my mother. She's a little girl. Oh, why would a little girl behave like this? So you begin to think maybe this has been my mother in a past life, and carrying on her motherly tendencies in this life. Yes. I will take one more at the rear. Yeah, I saw this hand.
Going back to the first lady that asked you the question, and this explains how the sins of our forefathers catch up with us.
How the
sins of our forefathers catch up with us, or the sins of us
Oh, yes.
are brought upon our children.
Yeah. This is one quotation, that the sins of our forefathers are carried from generation to generation. So it might be that we were that generation. Yeah. And so nobody inflicts pain and suffering or punishment on us, but we ourselves, if not in this generation, in the following generation. And may it be that the lesson learned here is that finally the virtuous divine self learns out of the sufferings and sorrows that we as souls go through. And it said, as we go through life, this will end up finally in a perfected humanity that begins to learn the lessons of life and understand the intelligence behind the universe, and therefore one uses one's intelligence to harmonize with the intelligence of the universe. And here we come now to the perfection of our humanity, which is the final growth of our spiritual development. Well, thank you for your questions.
Thank you.